A reading from the book of Genesis, chapter 6. Increasing corruption on earth. When man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh. His days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of man, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things, and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. No, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it lower, second, and third decks. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kinds, and of the animals according to their kinds, of every creeping thing of the ground according to its kind, 2 of every sort shall come into you to keep them alive. Also take with you every sort of food that is eaten, and store it up. It shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this. He did all that God commanded him. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So here we see that Noah was probably the only man in his family to somewhat get God's approval enough to be rescued from God's oncoming wrath, because God had gotten to the point where he was just fed up with mankind. He didn't like it. It was just filled with violence. Men and women were just being way too violent. They didn't care for God. They didn't honor him in any way with their lifestyles. And so God found them to be expendable, because it grieved him to his heart to even have made man. Now that must be a whole lot of wickedness, and I'm not saying that nowadays we're any better. Maybe he's grieved a whole lot just as he was back then, right now. There's definitely a whole lot of violence going on all over our world, and war is profitable. There's a lot of wars that are just being done for profit. I'm not saying the ones that are happening now are, but I'm sure a lot of the ones that have happened throughout the years of history were for that reason, among other reasons. It's a profitable thing. And well, men and women, because of original sin, we have a tendency to just be sinful people, to do things our way, the way we please, just looking for our own self gratification, just completely being um, uh, egotistical and hedonistic without really talking to God, having a relationship with God, asking Him what He wants, and not making decisions outside of what He wants. Now, Noah, on the other hand, he was a lot more obedient to God, from what I gather reading this sixth chapter of Genesis. And so God gave him the instructions on how to build the ark exactly, so that he can put in a pair of animals, male and female, of every kind. And so that's what Noah did. He was obedient to the T. There was nothing he didn't that God asked him to do that Noah did not do. He did everything. He even stored up um, every sort of food that was eaten at the time, and so that he could have some food to eat during the flood, and also the animals. I'm sure there was a lot of animals in that ark, and they all had enough to eat to survive that flood. So he stored a lot of food inside that same ark, and he was able, with God's help, of course, to bring in um, both a male and a female of every animal. So we brought a couple of every animal, so that once God was finished annihilating everything that was on the earth, this couple of animals would be able to procreate and continue to multiply on earth, and continue to have, every animal you could think of: skunks, ostriches, tigers, giraffes, lions, bears. And you would think all these animals would inside that ark would get hungry for one another, since there's a food chain that they uh, obey. But I'm sure God in his infinite wisdom knew how to design that ark in such a way where they wouldn't be well, they would be caged up for sure, and they wouldn't be eating one another inside that ark. And so I just see how God in his great mercy was able to say, well, I'm going to basically do a reset of all of humanity, and I'm going to use Noah and his family to bring about that reset. And everybody else is just, I mean, I don't know if they went to hell. Only God knows how he judged everybody that ended up a victim of that flood, but he certainly didn't take them into consideration to repopulate the earth after the great natural disaster of the flood. And not too long ago, my wife and I, with the families, watched the movie San Andreas. I think that was the name of the movie, where there was this major earthquakes, just really just going off in California. And that's not to say that something like that can't happen, where big cities such as San Francisco can find itself like uh, crumbling, and then also hit by tsunamis. I mean, nothing is impossible for God. If God were to reach his limit of how much he's willing to tolerate as far as a sinful lifestyle. I mean, remember, he did destroy Sodom and Gomorrah later in the Bible, so he could definitely do it again, however way he pleases. He's not going to flood the entire earth the way he flooded um, the earth in the time of Noah, but any other which way is fair game for him if he sees that humanity is just hell bent on being violent and liars and just thieves, and not taking care of each other, but more on a rampage to uh, do all kinds of wickedness, all kinds of wickedness. If you could think about it, that's part of it. Um, and so I know there's a lot of wickedness nowadays. A lot of it which is not really talked about. It's not shown on the media. It's not talked about because a lot of times the worst of the worst wickedness is going on by those in power. So of course they're not going to want to taint their names. Of course they're going to want to continue portraying themselves as the most immaculate and well-respected men and women on earth, when really they're the probably the most hideous ones. And God sees everything. It's all going to be judged sooner or later. There's gonna be everything brought to the light, and the whole world will know, how we've been deceived and fooled by a system that has been set up for centuries now, and which only hides its own wickedness. But it cannot hide from God, and God's justice definitely will have the last word. And God's kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.